From Immersive Labs, this is Cyber Humanity.
Hello again, I'm your host Chris Pace. Cyber Humanity is the podcast taking cyber security personally, trying to get inside the heads of hackers as well as putting our feet in the shoes of defenders. These podcasts essentially come in two flavors, either us ranting about themes close to the hearts of security types or us chatting about threat and security stuff from recent weeks. This episode is another one of those, and I'm joined by fellow members of my cyber boy band, Kev Breen, Max Vetter and Paul Bentham.
Hello.
Well, we start this week in a place that Max Vetter loves, the dark web.
It's the best web.
Are we low on ratings, Chris? Is that why we're doing dark web?
We need to start putting more dark web related stuff in the summaries of the podcast to try and drive up some of the traffic, yeah. Because I don't know what it is about the dark web. Maybe it is because it's got the word dark in it, or it's got this mystique about it, or because it doesn't seem like it's a thing that's accessible to a lot of people. I don't know. But anyway, whatever it is, it always drives a lot of interest. And I think it is because people feel like they're getting this insight into the kind of hacker mentality. And this report from Armour, which has come out, had a load of stuff in it about what's going on in dark web marketplaces and things being offered and sold and bought and all that kind of stuff. But one of the most interesting things to come out of it from our point of view, obviously, was HackTown. Welcome to HackTown, guys.
Is it an actual place? Can I look?
Let me tell you all about HackTown. HackTown is designed to teach you more about cybercrime and how to become a professional cyber criminal in 2020.
Oh, a professional cyber criminal. The best kind of cyber criminal.
Hang on a sec. So I wanted something that would teach me the techniques, tactics, and procedures needed to be a successful cyber criminal without all the bull beep.
We could just put the E logo on this. You don't have to say bull beep, and you don't have to. We can afford sound effects, Kev. We don't have to bleep yourself out.
So it's been around since April, updated September 9th.
Oh, would you have to pay for it?
It's $125 for access to all of the training material, although there are 4 courses for free. And if we track the blockchain for the Bitcoin address, it's had 3 transactions. So a whole 3 people have bought it. But let me introduce you to Funshine. This course was written by me, Funshine. Who the fuck am I? I was a freelance black hat nation-state contractor, dark web fisher, spoofer, forum lurking master, ex-associate-ish at well-known hacking firm who made a lot of money through cybercrime. Now, this is a guy you can trust.
When he says at well-known hacking firm, does he mean like a hacking firm as in like... If a professional said firm, you'd be like, oh, the company that they work at. Whereas if a gangster says firm, it means like the gang that they're in. So does he mean like he's a gangster?
I honestly don't know. But I mean, so there are 4 courses which you can view for free without having to pay for. And these courses are OPSEC, Wi-Fi hacking, network attacks, and carding. So how to steal credit card numbers and where to buy them and what to do with them. And reading through them, there's actually quite a bit of like interesting and useful information. I mean, none of it's his. It's all stolen and copied from other places of the internet.
Well, of course it is, because I don't know if you know, he's a forum lurking master. So I never expected that you were going to tell us this was all original content.
He's just rewritten it, like to put himself as the author. But that brings us
in his unique way, style,
which gives us some things like making your crypto completely anonymous to spend on whatever your heart desires, like heroin or crack, most likely.
No actual way.
So he's on about buying a burner phone, and he says like go miles away from where you live. Buy it, like disguise yourself and don't use it for 30 days afterwards. The CCTV's overwritten. And he says, in any event, take efforts to disguise yourself when you're buying a burner phone. Sunglasses, hats, wigs, etc.
It in fairness, these aren't things that you would have thought of when you're buying a burner phone.
And then the other one I really loved, he's talking about PGP encryption, so encrypting messages to each other. Before you encrypt any messages to your drug cartel gangbangers, you need their public key.
This is a kid. You know what? You know who's written this? This is a kid that's played too much Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
That's what it reads like to me. Somebody's been playing Grand Theft Auto since they were 6 years old, and now they're 12, and they've decided that they're like elite.
The one thing I will say is that there is a danger here. So, like, whilst this information is like broadly available, and like he talks about hacking Wi-Fi networks, and the material's copied from a pen testing website. So it is accurate information, but he does put a criminal context into all of this training. So, like, he is effectively teaching people how to be cyber criminals. It's a real thing that's happening.
Yeah, the angle seems to be that the focus is on what he describes as personal profit. It's like, rather than just I'm showing you a way that a thing could be vulnerable, instead I'm showing you how you can exploit that vulnerability as a way to basically make yourself money.
Yeah, and like he does go into, like, in the OPSEC stuff, he teaches you how to create like properly secure emails using like Tor-based email providers and stuff like that. So he does go into some detail on how you can, and they are fairly effective techniques that he's describing. There's obviously mitigations against most of it, but they're effective nonetheless.
And $125 is cheaper than most universities.
It's
a lot cheaper than most. Yeah, it's a complete bargain. So, you know.
I mean, there's something really interesting here, isn't there? $125 to learn how to hack like a criminal without any of the kind of response. That's so cheap. I mean, we've talked about this before with like the old original gangsters, like just spewing Bitcoin around the place like it's monopoly money. Like, are we worried here that this is actually going to take off? I know you only said there's like 2 people who signed up, but I think there's a responsibility here, isn't there, for more, I don't know, like more responsible education on cyber.
Well, it's one of the big problems about, by definition, anything that would help somebody understand how to secure things has to, by definition, also ensure that they understand how things can be exploited. So it is a bit of a perennial challenge, isn't it? In cybersecurity generally, and in cybersecurity development of cybersecurity skills, is that you have to open a window into understanding the motivation of the attacker in order to be able to effectively defend. And so you might argue it's kind of the same as that, just more explicitly focused on the bad side.
It's kind of the reason the cyber industry is actually interesting, right? Is if there were no hackers doing the bad stuff and we were just learning some interesting kind of, I don't know, networking things, there's no interest to it apart from the fact that bad guys can use it to do bad things. And that's why people love doing red teaming and hacking and ethical hacking, because it's cool when you do it. You're like, oh, I'm like a hacker. And so in a way, that's a major part of the industry being like interesting for all of us to be part of, because it is like criminals use the same tools that we're using to secure things.
So one of the challenges is, of course, access to the right kinds of content to help people go in the right direction. Although the argument would be it's much easier to find the right kinds of content than it is to find this kind of content. You have to already be able to use the dark web in order to get to this stuff. But yeah, the idea of building a community edition of Immersive Labs is to open up our world, firstly, and to give anyone an opportunity to get hands-on with cool stuff in cyber that hopefully means that they're directing energy in that way as opposed to in any other more nefarious way. Back to a point that you were making, though, Max, about the kind of the nature of the industry. I think it's also a reason why so many people will download a report that is called the Dark Web, whatever it was called, what was it called? The Dark Web Marketplace Report.
2020 Dark Market Report.
Yeah.
The new economy. Because
there is a inherent fascination with the badness of hackers.
Can I just say I have an issue with this report?
Just one issue,
let me. There's a few issues I have.
I think everybody, you'll pull up a chair, get your cup of tea on. I think Max has got a rant coming.
I don't know much about Armour. Might be a great company, whatever. But the team that wrote this report is called the Threat Resistance Unit.
TRU.
Yeah, not the GRU. The TRU. It sounds a bit like GRU, so that's even cooler. We're doing a deep dive into underground hacker markets and forums. And this is a kind of, everyone knows I love the dark web. I like it because it is a kind of a window into the stuff that most people don't see. And it's not hard to actually get there. They call it the dark web, but it's really pretty easy. You just Google how to do it. And it's
trivial.
It does kind of seep with. We want to do some marketing for ourselves, so we basically gone and looked on the dark web, which is pretty much the same as just Googling nowadays. Like, it's not hard to get on there, and then we've created this 37-page report by our threat resistance unit because it must be some kind of terrorists or something that we're working against now. It's not just hackers, and a lot of it, it's just. They found some cool stuff. And obviously that website in it is really interesting to cover, but a lot of it is just, they've just cut and pasted from the dark web into this report. And it's a bit, I think it's more of a marketing thing than actually any useful threat intelligence. So that's...
Well, no, of course it's not, because they want to sell you that. I mean, they want to sell you that part. So they'll provide you with the very broad brushes of what are the kinds of things that are going on the dark web, and what they then want you to do is to invest in getting dark web threat intelligence that is, supposedly unique to your organization or beneficial to your organization in some way. I think the problem with that is that without a lot of work, it's actually pretty hard to find anything that would be of any real direct relevance to an organization and protecting themselves, other than things like potentially new vulnerabilities that are being exploited, and maybe intellectual property occasionally bubbling to the surface, and where to go to pay your ransom and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
I mean, 4 pages of this is just screenshots of this dark web, HackTown, which is kind of like, why are you downloading this report? Just go download Tor and have a look at it yourself if it's that big a threat. And as Kev said, if there's 3 people paying for it, it's clearly not.
Well, that's the other thing. So did they reference in the report that only 3 people have paid for it?
No. So I went and manually tracked the blockchain.
You've given them away there, Kev, because basically what they want to try to do is to present this idea that, oh look, there's this place where hackers are going to learn to be hackers, and it's a university for hackers. And in the picture you've constructed in your mind is thousands of Eastern Europeans, shelling out £97 or $125 to go and learn to be a elite hacker, when it turns out that like 3 guys have actually coughed up for it.
Might just be the same guy.
One of them is probably a test.
Yeah.
This is actually, I know that we're all like whatever, but this actually, I'm finding it quite interesting, and I'll tell you why. On page 7 of this report, it tells you for $10 you can get 1,000 podcast downloads. What? That's a bargain.
I mean, I know someone who did buy loads of followers because they were trying to be an influencer or whatever, and you always get found out because eventually Twitter
was it Max Arvetta?
Yeah, maxarvetta.wordpress.com.
If you haven't listened to the episode where we make fun of Max's WordPress, I really encourage you to do so. The interesting thing about this economy is that the prices are just ridiculous. I don't understand how you can even begin to make money. Like, you can, for $185, destroy a target's business.
Well, what does that mean? I mean, there's some of this which is, that they've gone through and the average price of a fake credit card, and they vary in different regions, and so some of it is like, okay, that might be interesting for financial whatever. But there's some of it they clearly just found one website that someone was saying something on the dark web. We just basically made it up, trying to sell his wares, and they've just stick it in there, which is a bit lazy. Like, you can do a bit more analysis of any intelligence on the dark web rather than just like, oh, I found some new websites that went up.
This is the point, isn't it? This is like me going down to the Dog and Duck on a Friday night and listening to Terry and Derek tell me that they're going to knock over the pawn shop on the corner, and me going, oh, that's credible intelligence. I'm going to go straight to the police. Like, of course, you're basically taking the word of someone who is inherently and fundamentally dishonest, and then saying, oh, that's definitely intelligence.
Well, I guess that's why this report's dangerous, isn't it? Because Luddites like me look at it and go, well, someone who's put some effort into this must be intelligence rather than just copy and paste off the dark web.
This report shows like the surface of the dark web. So the dark web has layers, and I think we've spoken about this before, and what we're talking about here, and like Max alluded to, is really easy to get to. Like, just download Tor, like hit one of the wikis, and you'll find the dark web. There's another layer below that where it's invite only, professionals, and like there's some stuff on REvil we're going to talk about in a bit. And this is the darker side of the dark web, and that's where the real malware is traded. That's where the 0 days are traded. That's where like all of that kind of access, that hidden stuff, that's all traded there. And that, unless you're active in those scenes, unless you're actively exploiting, buying, spending criminal money, you're unlikely to get a foot into that environment to be able to report on it.
Yeah, and that is the more interesting stuff especially from intel, threat intel, and cyber point of view. Is that's the stuff that the 0 days aren't going to be on open, dark web websites where there's ones where you say you can buy an assassin. Doesn't mean there's actually an assassin there. You don't just put it in a report. Oh, you can kill someone for $100. It's like, well, no, just someone put a website up.
There's this other article that's out this week about REvil putting $1 million in a Bitcoin account. Is this on the dark web as well? So to get the kind of hackers for hire thing, so that they can do their whole ransomware as a service idea. I thought this was quite fascinating this week, because we've got this whole, like, we've just been talking about how, like, this maybe slightly dubious report is kind of showing you the kind of economy of the dark web. And we've always talked about ransomware as a service, and I've never really understood the economics of it, and what is in it for the people who are writing the ransomware, and what is in it for people who are getting onto the servers. And here we have $1 million. I mean, that's serious money. Like, I think it's 99 Bitcoins, isn't it? Like, that's serious money.
We know that we've talked about REvil and Sodnikibi and like these new wave of ransomware as a service, and they don't do all the heavy lifting themselves. So they operate with affiliates. The idea being that one of your affiliates will, like, I create the ransomware, I run the C2, I run all the distribution, I make sure that it's undetectable. You buy it off me. You sign up with me as an affiliate. I give it to you for free. You seed it out to as many places as you can get, and if you get a successful infection, like, you keep 80%, I'll take 20% off the top. So them dumping 1 million into a Bitcoin address is effectively them saying, look, we do make money, come join our affiliate scheme. Like, this is proof that we can actually monetize this thing we're doing.
If they're taking a cut, it is in their interests to attempt to scale as effectively as possible. The other thing we also know is we know that as effective as any as a service malicious thing is, it nearly always has a limited shelf life. It eventually gets to a point where either it can't be sustained or the heat is too great. We've seen that happen so many times where these they either take themselves down, or it all gets burnt, or it gets uncovered by law enforcement, or whatever it is. But they know that they basically have a limited window of time to scale as quickly as possible to maximize what they can do. And I think that's probably the reason for this.
It's amazing that they are continuing to exist unhindered by any law enforcement. I mean, have we got to assume that they're sort of in deepest, darkest Russia slash China slash Iran slash North Korea at this point?
I think it's pretty obviously Russia, because there wasn't this post on a Russian.
Yeah, they're in Russian forums.
I mean, I would say, though, if there's one thing that we know about REvil at this point, it's that they have massive balls. So none of this should be a surprise to us. REvil were the first to start, to create the forum, weren't they? The blog, and they were the first to go. They were the first to sort of attempt to publicly shame their victims into paying. They were the first to start stealing data and threatening to release it. They are both ruthless and confident. So this does not surprise me at all.
That's one way of putting a target on you. Like, they've dropped it in a Bitcoin account, which is traceable. It depends whether they've put it into Monero and then back into Bitcoin, or how they're actually trying to hide that. But that's a big target on them, just going. So again, like, it's interesting, like, choice that they're making.
Does he, just on a little bit of technical insight I'd like to try and get here. So is this saying that, so I'm just reading the description here, and it says that the ransomware developers receive a 20 to 30% cut, and the affiliate gets 70 to 80% of the ransom payments that they generate. Does that mean that the infrastructure itself is all connected together? So if I am the developer, I can see what my affiliates are earning, so that I know that I'm getting the cut that I should be getting, or am I trusting them to give me what they should be getting?
There are two different models to this, and one of them's kind of going away. What used to happen when you were running these kind of affiliate links is you would send out your malware, it would automatically run, and it would connect back to the attacker's infrastructure. They would see the incoming connections, and then they would take over from there. What we've seen with people like REvil and Evil Corp is they've shifted away from that C2 because it's trackable and detectable, and they've gone to a you must contact us. So what will typically happen in these kind of situations is the affiliate will either hand over communication to REvil, and they'll do their exchange there, or the affiliates will do the negotiation. And at this point, the only people who hold the keys are REvil. So the affiliate will say, this is the ransom with whatever proof they've got. This is how much we got. Here's your 20%. Now you give me the decryption keys, and then they'll forward those on.
So basically, there must be an element of trust there, because it feels to me like in the situation that you described there, they could actually say that they got paid less potentially, right? They could find some way of almost hiding what they really got paid.
The one thing that like hackers on the dark web love is a really good escrow service, and you'll find the dark web is full of escrow services for exactly this reason, for trust. So there are for trusted escrow services on the dark web, and they are used by the majority of hackers for exactly this reason. Where you don't know the other person, you can trust the escrow service, because the escrow service has got 10 years worth of history of doing valid escrow.
Moving along then. So also this week, HP Device Manager, which to be honest, a few of us didn't really know what it was. We had to do a bit of Googling around to figure it out, but essentially seems like it is a manager for HP thin clients, which are basically highly managed laptops that you can have to use in your business. A researcher has uncovered the fact that there is a backdoor database user account that basically undermines all of the network security that helps to keep that thing safe. Now, that is not the most interesting thing about it. The most interesting thing about it is all of the handbags that has gone on in the background about the disclosure. So it's one of those things where it's like the threat itself is a little bit like, oh yeah, that's quite bad that you can just backdoor straight into that thing that controls all the laptops on your network. But more interestingly, is all the chit chat about the researcher trying to disclose this. So, Kev, you've been looking at this a little bit. What actually has got? Well, first of all, when did he first disclose this?
on or around the 3rd of August of this year, he was looking at HP device management, and I think he's an admin, and he was looking at some logs trying to figure out what was going wrong, and he noticed that there was this in one of the logs there was a highly privileged database account where the password was space. And he thought,
strong password. I like it. Might try that myself.
That's a bit weird. It's a bit of an odd thing to have there. So he started digging into it and then found that, yeah, okay, you can do some damage with that. And on the 3rd of August, he contacted HP to disclose details. It wasn't just that. He found some other stuff after he started diving into it as well. So he contacted HP, did the right thing. HP, you've got a problem. Silence.
Is this like what happened when you spoke to Nando's? Like you got into like, is my chicken too cold? Like, hi HP, how may I help you? I found a massive vulnerability in one of your serious pieces of software. Mm-hmm. Like, press 1 for my laptop won't start. Press 2 for my printers ran out of ink.
Yeah. So he then like tried again, and this time he explained that he was going to follow a 30-day disclosure. Where after 30 days he was going to publish everything, at which point HP went, hang on a second, please. We would like 90 days to fix this. And that was on August the 19th. At that point, and I'm going to read this out, Blore was not inclined to just wait around for HP. I'm paid to help people secure their IT environments applications, but I also don't have the time to waste chasing HP and hoping that somebody in 90 plus days they will produce a patch that will help me to secure my clients' environments. He said the fix for the most severe part of this issue is trivial, so 90 plus days is a joke. And then 2 days ago, well within that 90 days, so he didn't bother waiting, he published details. It does appear like he went through his original 30 days. And so there is no defined disclosure. Most people will operate on a 30, 60, or 90 days. And you usually say that up front. You'll say that this is what I'm saying. And if you get somebody who's responsive, then like you work with them. And we've done this with some of the disclosures that we've gone through. Like we've said we want to disclose, they've asked us to delay or wait, and like we've been happy to delay for some of those reasons. Turns out he wasn't quite so willing to wait 90 days.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I hear you tell the story, and there are times I'm hearing you telling the story and I'm thinking, like that's bad form, you should have given them a chance to. And then there's other parts of the story where I'm like, no, the guy's totally right. You know that they're saying 90 days to basically keep him quiet while they have loads of time to mull over what they're going to do, because they're a gigantic corporation and it takes them like 10 years to turn anywhere. And he knows he's going to get caught up in all of that machinery, doesn't he?
And when they came back with the 90-day request, like they didn't come back answering any of the questions or validating anything. They just came back with we want 90 days. No, yes, okay, it's a thing, 90 days. Like they just came back and said no. The day so on Tuesday, so maybe a day after the announcement came out, HP acknowledged the security blunder and have assigned 1, 2, 3 CVEs, the biggest of which is a 9.9 out of 10. Not quite a perfect 10.
Oh, not a 10.
Don't touch that button. No, don't touch that button. That button is explicitly for perfect 10s.
You know what the punchline is for this whole thing? HP patched it yesterday.
So turned out they didn't need. But all that's done really, in my mind, is justified his view as the researcher. I mean, it's a very odd dynamic, this whole like researcher uncovers vulnerability, discloses vulnerability to gigantic corporation suddenly becomes in control of that narrative. Like, how is that I'm not sure as a marketer how okay I am with that. Like, why does the gigantic corporation suddenly get to own the narrative? I found the vulnerability, like if they are unresponsive or if they make unrealistic demands, especially in this context where he knew it was a relatively easy fix, then I sort of feel like he's well within his rights.
There's a little bit of a like throwing your teddies out of the pram, kind of just dump it on Twitter. But yeah, arguably, like, you're absolutely right. And that's why we have disclosure in place. It's to force companies to fix their stuff when it's broken.
I think the thing that's really salty about this whole exchange, though, is that he's obviously feeling like he deserves a bug bounty for this. Like, but rightly so, right? This is like, if he'd have found this in Apple would have been boom, 100K, done. And he'd be, and rightly so, because it's a pretty serious vulnerability, 9.9. Like, and of course he's gone, I'm just going to spew this onto the internet, and he's burnt any kind of bug bounty for a load of personal credibility, which is great. And of course, the upshot is the internet's a little bit of a safer place enterprise are a bit of a safer place because he did so.
He has gone for the transparent disclosure over the responsible disclosure route, and yet again, it has worked. So, I mean, I'm going to start making a list of these every time somebody is ready to say, no, I'm going to out you, gigantic company. You need to sort this out as soon as. Weirdly enough, they get patched. Isn't that odd?
Yeah, so HP do have the HP SSRT, which is their security vulnerability reporting team. Their software security response team. So they do have a team. There's a notification on HackerOne for HP on how to report things. So it's surprising that they weren't like better at this. Or maybe then again, maybe it's not surprising. I've never dealt with HP myself.
Well, we are putting a lot of credence on this chappie's tweets, aren't we? I mean, it could be that he did email like support@hp.com and said, hey, I found some like vulnerabilities, and they were like, click one, two. And so maybe he didn't try, I don't know.
But in 2020, where vulnerabilities bring down companies, that's not okay anymore. And this, I mean, Sean Wright was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about exactly this thing, this "we take your security seriously" platitude. And the reality is that if somebody contacts an organization through a channel, a communication channel that is the way to get in touch with them, the people who man that channel should be trained to understand when someone says, I am a security researcher, I have discovered a vulnerability, there should be a process for that, even if they have emailed support@hp.com. Those things in this day and age need fixing, because these vulnerabilities are like, and this one, 9.9, it's not mucking around. It's pretty serious.
Well, I'm on my favorite company for responsible disclosure. So mine to F5 in July should be finally patched.
I knew you wouldn't be able to resist it. Do you know how we know how long that has been dragging on for? The number of podcasts that has featured on.
Maybe that could be your disclosure policy. I'll do 20 podcasts before I disclose this.
So in an interesting crossover between sort of real gangsters and cyber criminals, Polish police this week have shut down a hacking supergroup, their term, involved in bomb threats, ransomware, and SIM jacking. This is quite... Once you get into this story, this whole thing is quite crazy, but I will try to give you a kind of summary, and then we'll get into how this could have actually happened in real life. But basically, this hacking supergroup was involved in a multitude of cyber operations. 4 suspects were arrested this week. 4 more were already under investigation and had been under investigation since May of 2019. And the way this all started was that an individual named Lukasz K, they haven't identified him fully, had found these hackers on internet forums and hired them to send a bomb threat to a local school. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's a bit weird.
Wow.
Why would you do that?
That's messed up.
Right? But the reason he was doing it was to make the email look like it came from a business rival. So basically to get the hackers to spoof the guy's identity, send the email and make it look like it was him that was threatening the school. So the guy whose identity was spoofed, he was arrested. He spent 2 days in prison before the police had figured out what happened. And then when the framed businessman was released from jail, he then hired a private investigator to try to track down who,
cool.
right? Yeah. Try to track down who had done it.
He must have known that these guys must have had, beef. He was like, I know it's you. I just need to find out how I know it's you.
I mean, but in these crime shows, isn't that like the first thing they ask? But this guy's dead. Who had it? Like, who did he have? And he recently disagreed with anyone?
It's the business partner with the knife. Yeah.
Yes. The business partner in the office with the revolver.
Well, you know what's great about this story? Proper criminals are getting involved. Like, I've always felt that cybercrime was like, a little bit like nerdy and like a little bit like in the background. It wasn't like proper criminals. I know that there's actual proper bad stuff, but it's not really bad. But these are actual bad criminals. These are the kind of ones that are on TV.
I think Kev is going to disagree, because I think what we see, the way that cybercrime often works, is that the nerdy geeks are recruited by the real criminals as basically like adding them to their portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they do the hacky bit, but they've still got the muscle to do all the horrible stuff. Which this one, is amazing. What they've then uncovered is another 1,000 bomb threats that they sent to 275 kindergartens were evacuated. 1,000 of them sent bomb threats.
Hang on.
Asking
bomb
for
threats
ransom.
were set to 1,066 kindergartens, but only 275 were in.
There are so many. I have so many questions that come out of even just that one sentence. First of all, if you're going to bomb threaten anyone in an attempt to extort the grand sum of $1,300 from them, right? Why kindergartens?
I don't even know where to begin to ask.
Are kindergartens in Poland particularly well off? Are they known as being successful businesses that you would definitely? Well, and none of that makes any sense.
I mean, you've gone down a weird rabbit hole there. I don't understand why why are you doing this to kindergartens? There's proper businesses in Poland. Why are we doing kindergartens?
But then coming back to the actual hacking bit of it, then it goes on to say they're also involved in ransomware, rats, phishing, SIM swapping, and all the rest as well.
Yeah, it's just obviously that the bomb threats to kindergartens is up there.
The most important bit.
As a great headline for an article, trust me, it's the best one.
Yeah.
But they have distributed malware via email phishing attacks, which, to be honest, just isn't quite as good a headline, Max. If I'm being honest. But
I do wonder, a supergroup. Why? You mentioned that earlier, but why are they defined as super?
I think it's to do with I think it's maybe to do with the scale of it, and the fact that they are just involved in so much stuff. Because a supergroup is where you have people come in and out of it, big names come in and out of it, but it's basically either one guy or two guys that don't change. And I think it's a bit like that, right? It's like if they're doing a gig one week that is, I don't know, sim jacking, they get they get the sim jackers in, and that's what they do for that week. And then next week they move on to remote access Trojans, for example.
That's quite an interesting. So the hackers tried to steal $2 million from one victim. This hack was stopped when the bank called the victim's phone number to confirm the transactions. Now, the victim's phone number was SIM swapped. So when the bank phoned, they reached the hackers. Now, the only reason this wasn't successful is because apparently the bank didn't recognize the customer's voice from previous conversations.
The bank.
The only thing that stopped $2 million being stolen was I didn't recognize your voice.
I thought you were going to say the only thing that stopped them was that they didn't know their mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
No, didn't recognise its regular customer's voice from previous conversations. The bank official.
It's amazing. Well done, that banker. I think the reason why this article's even an article is because for once they've caught some criminals. I mean, you look at what they've stolen here: 147,000 euros, a few bomb threats. This isn't exactly top tier cybercrime, is it? Like it's hard, they've hardly stolen anything compared to some of the ransomware payments that we see.
But I think the fake bomb alerts are what makes them, what probably like bumped them up the most wanted, because
yeah, maybe, but
threatening to bomb children is pretty extreme when it comes to.
And I didn't get to the end of the story with the private investigator. So basically, the private investigator who tried to track down the culprits behind the fake bomb alert, and then when the hackers realized what was happening, they hacked a Polish mobile operator to generate invoices for thousands of pounds in the name of the private eye and the businessman who was originally framed. So they were like pretty serious about, it was all very really, sort of,
really personal
to me,
stuff.
this isn't just cybercrime. This is almost like a cyber vendetta almost. It's just like, it's like good old fashioned gangster stuff, but using computers, which is great. They could turn this into a movie.
And maybe this is why they've been caught, because it got too personal. I think maybe cyber criminals need to treat their victims like cattle and not like pets.
Okay, and it's a pleasure to say that, as always, I love that this has become a regular feature. We will wrap up with Hackers Could. Now, this one does not have Hackers Could in the headline, and it isn't really about hackers at all, but it's just such a great story that we couldn't not talk about it. So here is the headline. Internet. Old TV caused village broadband outages for 18 months. 18 months. And if you read the story, the best thing is that the person clearly woke up every morning at 7 a.m., turned on their television, and the electrical interference emitted by it was affecting the broadband for the rest of the village. Did anyone even know this was a thing?
I have literally no idea how this could work either. Like, what is that TV doing that it's affecting the broadband?
It's got a name.
It's called Shine.
Huh?
Single high-level impulse noise.
Yeah, but, right, what is it affecting the phone lines? Or was it Wi-Fi affecting Wi-Fi? What was it actually affecting?
So this is rural broadband. So the way rural broadband works is it's RF. So you put a high-frequency RF shot in, and then you have a local mass. So it was the RF shot that was being disrupted.
I have a feeling that our school internet used to be a bit like this back in the day, didn't it? Like done over the air or something. Maybe I'm imagining that. But
They have them now for... Yeah, there's a lot of really good internet out in the mountains and things that use this same technology. But don't use a really old TV.
I just don't understand why they're not weaponizing this. Imagine you can take down the internet of a whole, like it's a bit like a electromagnetic pulse, but all you've got to do is turn on Piers Morgan. It's incredible.
Did the TV stay on all day then? Is that why the broadband wasn't working? It came on at 7, went off at bedtime, whatever, and it wasn't working? Or did that pulse at the start of the day like destabilize the signal and then it never came back?
So yeah, it was that pulse like turning on and then that desynced and then like I think it came back up eventually, but like 7 o'clock every morning like the internet would go off and you'd have to wait for everything to reestablish, for the links to reestablish, come back up, and then it took them 18 months to realize they had people walking around with spectrum analyzers. And then it's like 7 o'clock and ping, there it goes. Great. Where did that come from?
Great.
So now we're going to have to try and triangulate. And then 7 o'clock, ping, there it is. It's brilliant.
This is not a hacker's could, but this is a hacker's should. Like someone needs to turn this into a thing that they could just get, like rock up in this village or any other of these villages in Wales that can't get proper internet, with a cathode ray TV in the back of the car, whack it on and just kill the internet for a day. Of course, because it's in Wales, the engineer they sent out was obviously called Mr. Jones. And at 7 a.m, like clockwork, every day it happened. And they were saying that these analyzers that they were going around with were picking up these sort of massive bursts of interference. So yeah, they'd switch the TV on and it would knock out the broadband for the entire village. That is an amazing thing that needs to be weaponized immediately. Okay, so that's my hackers should. My real hackers could is hackers could break into your phone and spy on you through its camera. This was an Instagram thing that I saw a couple of articles about this week, and Checkpoint were talking about it. I think they flagged it to Facebook, and I think it's actually probably been fixed. So in a way, like it's clearly not a hackers could, is it? Because if it's been patched, they can't do it anymore. I don't know how actually it worked, Kev. But it was a flaw in Instagram.
It was a flaw in the app. You could construct a specially crafted message, send it off, and then if your device loaded it, then it had the potential to infect devices. This is a hackers could and still could. If you don't update your Instagram, then there's still the potential that you're vulnerable to this. Like most app stores are pretty good at auto updating, but if you're not updating, you could still be vulnerable to it.
Well, I want to go back to like, again, a lot of these articles, they start with hackers could, and people read that like, oh, hackers could like get access or hack your phone or break your phone or whatever it is. But it doesn't go into so much detail about what the hacker could actually do and what the limitations or lack of limitations on what they might be able to do. I mean, it looked like this one was quite bad. Like they could actually get full access to, Instagram messages and stuff like that. But is there anything else that it could get access to?
This is a third party integration. So this isn't, strictly speaking, something that Instagram has. They don't have control. It's not their code. It's a third party library that they're using, and the vulnerability exists in there. So I think basically you could access the entire phone. So all that personal data on the device is yours.
Actually, if you don't update Instagram, that's pretty bad. That's a bad one. That is a hackers could.
You know what's quite good about this, though? The newspaper that it's in is The Sun, which I wouldn't have normally expected this type of article to be in. And actually, in the title, which of the headline here, it says major Instagram bug. Let's have a snoop on your phone, which is kind of fine by sending a single image file. And then the last part of the headline is update your app now. So that, in its headline, literally tells you everything that you should know about this. There's a bug in Instagram. It's already been fixed. Update your app.
That should be a bit of a requirement, actually, when, in these kinds of articles, particularly, if there is something that you can do in order to protect yourself against something like this, there should be a very clear indication of, what that thing might actually be. Yeah, good on them. And
done, The Sun.
We're saying that The Sun make better headlines than tech news.
And on that bombshell, it is time for us to end. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do subscribe, rate, and comment wherever you get your audio content. And if you want to know more about Immersive Labs, you can find us at immersivelabs.com or follow us on Twitter at Immersive Labs UK. Until next time, from all of us, goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.